So, Gregory, tell me about the organization that you are with right now.
Yes, so the organization I'm with is the APALA, the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance. We are an organization of Asian American and Pacific Islander Union members working to advance immigrant, worker, and broader civil rights.
Now, you are from California, you live in Washington, D.C. now, but you're here in Nevada. How important is Nevada to this election?
Nevada, to this election, is probably one of the most important states, which is why I'm here and met and hundreds of other people that I met that traveled across the country to be in Nevada because it's such an important battleground state. You might know that in Nevada, the Asian American Pacific Islander community actually grew 110% over the last decade. And Filipino Americans are actually a big part of a percentage of that growth. And so for us to engage the Filipino American and broader Asian American and Pacific Islander community is important. We're about almost 10% of the electorate here. And so we can go from being marginalized to the margin of victory, from the presidential for Clinton, for the Senate in terms of the major Senate race happening here, and all of the races up and down the ballot.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the other races, because of course the Senate is up for grabs. It's anyone's game right now. People are focusing a lot on the presidential race, but just as important, perhaps in some ways more important, is the senatorial race. Do you envision where do you see the majority going after this election?
So the polls are showing that Congressman Joe Heck and former Attorney General Catherine Cortez Masto are neck and neck in the polls. As I've been out knocking on doors and making phone calls, there's one thing that I've been seeing and hearing, and is that people care about health care, people care about education, people care about immigration reform, and of course the ongoing issues of jobs and the economy. And for me and for us at the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance, we're putting our support behind Catherine Cortez Masto. We actually hosted an event with her yesterday, and I've been really encouraging voters, saying if these are the issues that you care about, then this is the candidate. What we do know is that it's going to be an important seat for the Democrats to win if they want to regain control of the Senate. And so, even Bernie Sanders was out here today rallying for her. And so it's going to be close. And so for us, the message to people is every vote counts. And to be prepared to be waiting in long lines, because even the lines were long for early voting last week. And so to be prepared to be in long lines, but there will be people there to root you on, give you some water and food, and to try to keep the spirits up on election day.
Of course, anyone who knows anything about politics knows that you can look at the polls, but elections are won on the ground.
Yes.
And tell me about some of the efforts that your organization is doing on the ground to get people out from their homes into the booths.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such an important note. People say, well, we see so many yard signs here, or we saw so many ads there, and it's an important reminder that until we actually go to the ballot box and cast those ballots, then those are the numbers that actually count. And so we've been doing everything we can, in the summer and leading up into the fall, with the voter registration deadline, registering new voters. Just this cycle alone, we registered more than 3,000 new voters, and half of those were actually Filipino Americans here in Las Vegas. We've set up a variety of phone banks and a variety of canvases, and have also found certain ethnic enclaves and areas where to pass that information and to encourage people to learn more about the candidates running. And so we've looked at places like Chinatown and also Seafood City, since we're focusing on the broader Asian American and Pacific Islander community. They had early vote sites at those locations, but also we know that's where a lot of our communities are, and so it's important for us to kind of meet people where they're at, and really educate them not only on the issues, but where the different candidates stand on the issues. And for us, it's really about the ground game. And so it's making sure that we're knocking on people's doors numerous times, we're making numerous phone calls just to continue to remind people, because we know that it takes a couple of nudges to make sure people actually understand all the information they need, but also will actually make the commitment and an actual plan to vote on election day.
In your opinion, you're out there, you have a good sense of what's going on the street. Where do you see Nevada going on the election?
Oh, yeah, that's, again, it's the what I'm hearing, at least in terms of the doors that we're knocking on, the phone conversations, that there's strong support for Hillary Clinton. There's strong support for Catherine Cortez Masto. But again, it's going to be. I think that there's a lot of negative ads that have been going up. There's been a lot of money fueled in from a lot of people over the last even just couple of days, because they know Nevada is going to be that important for the presidential and for the Senate. Our hopes is that Hillary Clinton will be the next president, the first female president, and our hopes that Catherine Cortez Masto will be the next U.S. Senator from Nevada.
Now, talk about some of the issues. What are in your opinion, or at least in your experience, the three most important issues to Filipino American voters that you've encountered?
So yeah, I would say one of the biggest issues is immigration reform. And that's one thing that we've been really pushing is Hillary Clinton has promised in her first 100 days a comprehensive immigration reform bill with a pathway to citizenship. And that's an extremely crucial issue to our community, especially because there are many people in the Filipino American community who are undocumented and without papers, and who have been contributing to this country and to the economy. Another issue that I think is important is education. We want to make college more affordable. We want to make sure that there's actually enough resources for our kindergarten through 12th grade schools and public schools. And we want to make sure that people don't have to be taking mortgage-sized loans out to go to school. And so, and I think the last would be the ongoing issue of jobs in the economy. How are we addressing unemployment and underemployment? How are we supporting small businesses? And I think in all of those issues, Hillary Clinton and Catherine Cortez Masto has a track record and are proven champions, and that's why we're out here getting out the vote for our communities.
Aside from immigration, what are some of the other things that you think have resonated with Filipino Americans?
I think there's also been a lot of conversation about World War II veterans and getting equity for them. It's been so long now, and there's actually finally legislation moving in Congress now, but it's likely we're not sure exactly if it's going to be finished by the end of this term. So it's going to be something in the next Congress and also in the next administration. We know that that's an issue that our community cares about. And there's also actually been an up-and-coming conversation about criminal justice reform, and the need to figure out how do we end mass incarceration and how do we actually reinvest those resources back into education, back into health, and back into a lot more preventative measures so that people have the holistic resources and holistic tools to address things earlier on.
Give me your perception of, or your at least vision for what you think a Hillary Clinton presidency would mean to Filipino Americans.
My vision would be that there would be Filipino Americans represented at all levels of her administration, from secretaries in her cabinet all the way into all levels. I think it would mean that when she is bringing up her immigration reform bill and package in the first 100 days, that it includes the stories of those in the Filipino American community, including young people and documented youth. My vision is also that there's an ongoing effort to engage our communities, inclusion of Filipino Americans on the President's Commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, and even other boards and commissions as well, because we know that all of the different issues impact us in very different ways. And so to ensure our voices and representatives for our community are at the table, are helping make important policy decisions, and who continue to have ongoing access in terms of getting updates, but also making sure we can hold her accountable to some of these promises that she's made during the election season.
On the other side of the coin, what would a Trump presidency mean to Filipino Americans?
That for me, that's been a scary question, but it's a question that many people have actually asked. I worry that a Trump presidency would mean an attempt to try to deport us all, and all Filipino Americans and all people of color and immigrants. I think a Trump presidency will also mean that we will see less resources put into education and health. I see Social Security being cut. We definitely won't see an immigration reform bill that includes a pathway to citizenship in the first 100 days. And so there's so much at stake in this election. And when I think about the different visions and the different platforms and the different candidates, especially at the presidential level, that's why it's even that much more important for me to be engaged in this election and to get other folks in our community engaged, because I see two completely different White House administrations, two completely countries, and two completely different worlds based on who is elected and who will go to the White House in January.
You know, traditionally, Filipinos have been a modest kind of people. And do you feel that the negativity that has been out there has affected Filipino voters? And do you think that, how do you think they've reacted to it?
Yes, I think that there's definitely been a negative reaction to a lot of the racist and xenophobic, Islamophobic comments from Donald Trump, from many other Republicans and other candidates running for office. And I think that's why we're seeing record numbers going up to early vote. We're seeing people who maybe historically or in the past have never voted before who are now making it a priority. We're also seeing people who maybe identify or say they're not political, they're apolitical, who are saying we now have to vote, we now have to actually get involved and engage. And you know, I see that. That's why we're seeing people waiting in long lines for early vote. And even in Nevada alone, they said they early voting, I think they said they reached 72,000 voters in by the last day, and already beat the numbers from 2012. And so I think people are saying, you know, we will not allow you to demean us as a people, as a community, and that we're going to use our voice at the ballot box. And even for folks who aren't eligible to vote, I know many undocumented folks, I know many people who are formerly incarcerated who lost their right to vote, who have said, even though I personally can't vote, I'm going to make an effort to knock on doors and make phone calls, because this election is that important and there's that much at stake.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about yourself, because you know, many people look at voting as something that is tedious to them sometimes. What is it that made you want to get out and be a part of the democratic process?
I know that many people fought for our right to vote, and many people fought for our right to even be here and exist today. And so for me, this is my opportunity and my way to pay it forward. It's my way to know that, you know, while we are the fastest growing racial group, both in the Filipino American community, within the broader Asian American Pacific Islander community, and compared to other people of color, that we now need to show our collective power, you know. And I think while I think there are many ways to create social change and many ways to participate, voting is one way and one important way. And I also think about my parents who immigrated from the Philippines, who really sacrificed a lot to come here and to raise me and my sister Jessica, and that this is also for them. And I want to make sure that in anything that I do, and especially as I do more work around the election and to work to get more people civically engaged, that that's how I stay grounded. And that's what I tell people at the doors and on the phones is, this is about us as a community. This is about me and my family, and this is about you and your family. And I think it's reminding people that, you know, the impact that the voting and these decisions can have, and just how important it is for us to get involved.
You know, there was a speech that Trump made recently where he listed the Philippines among countries where terrorists have emigrated from. Did that move the needle at all among Filipino voters?
I think it did, because I think for some in the Filipino American community, they thought, you know, he's talking about other people, but not necessarily us. And so when he actually named, you know, our motherland, the Philippines, as one of those, as a country, I think it really was a wake-up call for some. I mean, to be honest with you, even in some of my family, it's been important to really engage folks back at home. And I remember actually saying, hey, did you all, I asked some people in my family, I said, hey, did you all remember, or did you all see this article? And some people said no, and I shared it with them, and it really said, oh no, this is even more of a reason for us to get out and vote, more of a reason for us to tell other people that we need to get involved. And I think what we're seeing overall is people understanding the importance and wanting to do more to get people out to vote.
Okay. And lastly, was there how long have you been involved with politics and getting people out into the polls?
You know, I've been involved in politics for some time. I remember being involved in campaigns as a high school student, and then getting even more involved in college, where I even ran for student government. And I even, when I moved to DC, I even ran to be a delegate to the Democratic National Convention in 2012. And even now, I have been really trying to find more ways to integrate civic and political engagement in our work at APALA, the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance, but also more broadly. And I'm learning more and more and seeing the importance of we need to figure out how we sustain this type of engagement all year long, not just October and then the first week of November leading up to the election. How are we now, so thinking about November 9th, that's the next stage. So now we have the election, people put in their vote, people will get elected. Then now we have to organize. Now we have to actually make sure that the issues we care about remain at the forefront of these elected officials, and we have to make sure that we still stay involved. And so as I even reflect now on how much I've been involved, it's I don't know, it's heartening, but also there's a lot more work that needs to get done. And I'm looking forward and hope that we will see record numbers of Filipino Americans turning out in this election. As you can see on this button here, it says it's our vote and our time. And so I really truly believe that we will be the difference maker in many states and races, and I think Las Vegas and Nevada is going to be one of those places. And so I look forward to a time where our power as a community will match the growth. And I look forward to a time where we can potentially see a Filipino American running for president of the United States.
Of course, we know Nevada. That's definitely a battleground state. There are several other battleground states, and of course, there are Filipinos throughout the country. Yeah. Where do you see Filipinos leaning towards overall in this country?
So there was actually a survey that was put out maybe a couple months now or ago, and actually showed that a majority of Filipino American voters were in support of Hillary Clinton, and if the election were them, that's who they would vote for. But for me, that was a signal that the work that we've been doing is working, but we needed to continue to push more because like we talked about before, polls don't vote, yard signs don't vote, ads don't vote, and so early voting was really critical. And now that we've kind of passed that, the message this weekend that we've been telling voters is be ready, make sure you have a plan to vote. Do you need a ride? Tuesday is the day, and just be prepared to be in some longer lines. And if there's voter intimidation or other issues, there's materials and resources available for that. And I think more broadly, as I'm thinking about even other places where Filipino Americans are, we have a program in Pennsylvania, in Virginia, and there's sizable Filipino populations in those states. I mean, even in California, there are actually a couple of Filipino American candidates on the ballot in California for the state legislature, and so I'm seeing more and more of our people and Filipino Americans getting on the ballot and engaged, and I think that there's a lot more growth. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of our people engaged at that level and also run for office.
Do you see of course, the people are talking about Ohio, they're talking about North Carolina, they're talking about Florida as states that could go either way. Do you think that Filipinos will move the needle at all on that?
Yeah, there's definitely sizable populations, Filipino populations in Florida. I know that there's pockets in Ohio and in North Carolina as well. I was actually just in North Carolina last weekend, and we have folks out there again this weekend. And I would say that even for Filipino Americans who aren't in some of these states, some people have been doing calls. As I know people in California have been either coming to Nevada or making calls to Nevada and other battleground states. People in DC have been calling and engaging in Virginia and Pennsylvania and New Hampshire, in kind of different areas. Overall, I think Filipino Americans are gonna be a decisive voting bloc. and will be the margin of victory for these races. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to maximize and leverage that to make sure our issues are at the forefront.
And let's say it's right because you have tomorrow is Monday, then it's the day before, and then you have of course election day. What is your community? What are you specifically going to do in these next 48 hours?
Absolutely. So tomorrow that we're gonna do a final round of canvassing. So we're gonna be hitting on a lot more doors and making sure that people know where their polling locations are and have rides if they need one, and that they make a plan to vote. So we'll do that for most of the day tomorrow, and then as it transitions into the evening, and now that since it's getting a little darker, we'll start the phone banking operation to start to just do final calls and reminders. And on Tuesday, there'll be a variety of poll monitoring, so people at polls, making sure that there aren't any voter intimidation or other issues, and keeping folks pumped up, passing out water and food. We'll also continue to make phone calls and canvass in the morning to remind people that today's the final day. And we'll have people at Seafood City and in Chinatown to make sure that they're passing out information. And so there's the next couple of days is going to be long, and there's a lot going on, but we're excited. I think other people are excited. People are ready, and are. We're expecting some strong turnout at the polls.
Is your community or the Democratic Party doing anything in this general area the day before election?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of when I say more broadly those different things, that's different groups of people are doing different things. So the Hillary Clinton campaign, the Democratic Party, you have labor unions and organizations, you have other community-based organizations, you have even for Apala and some of the work that we're doing. So there's kind of different kind of operations that are happening across the state.